Hello and welcome to Tartan Touchdown episodes. This is our Super Bowl review show and we'll be talking you through our opinions of the big game last night. From the euphoria of the opening kickoff until it was time for TV off and bed, what a show was put on last night. It's not like us to miss any of the key talking points, but we're going to be humble and we'll take you through it all. Before the game we had all the stars saying peekaboo, with Lady Gaga in Bourbon Street, John Hamm and Bradley Cooper doing the team introductions, and the amazing renditions of America the Beautiful and Star Spangled Banner. We all know that pageantry is part of the USA DNA. So much to talk about, although we'll be maybe lacking in sleep, the whole Tartan Touchdown team is here. Sarah was at a Super Bowl party for the game, while myself and Gav had a party on our own in our own houses for one. Sarah, how are you and what a game that was?
I am great. I'm obviously tired, but that's fine because my body still said it's a Monday morning, so you're waking up at 7 a.m. But yeah, no, what a game. It was great to see it surrounded by a group of fans who support every and all team, even if the focus was on one of those teams in particular. But no, it was great. Yeah. So I'm suffering, but I'll push through for you guys.
The joys of being a European American football fan.
Always.
Gav, how you doing yourself? You couldn't really take your eyes off that game in disbelief last night, could you? What was happening?
No, I think as we'll get into, but nobody really saw that game coming the way that it all panned out. Yep, very much hanging in here today. I think we've kind of mentioned it's the trials have been a European-based NFL fan. I'd seen a lot of on socials they had the map with the kickoff times across the world, and I'm definitely thinking it might be a good discussion point for our guest coming up soon on maybe shifting the kickoff time forward a couple of hours. I think we can make that work, but yeah, that's maybe one for another day to take to the commissioner.
Yeah, Roger, European fans have had enough. We want a 3:30 in the afternoon kickoff at US time.
I saw a video on TikTok of somebody who was based in the US being like, why is this on so late? Why do we not start it earlier? And then people obviously were saying, why can't it be on a Saturday? And so who knows? Who knows? I'm sure that'll be a conversation that is brought up.
Yeah, the other conversation keeps coming is they should make the Monday after the Super Bowl a national holiday.
Holiday, yeah.
It doesn't work for us though. That's no use to us.
No. Until they play a Super Bowl in London, then no.
I guarantee that'll be on a Saturday.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I think they talk for next year, or at least once they get their 18-game season, which is coming, not next year, but it's not far away. I think we all know. But if you add another week onto the season, then I think a week today, so the Monday a week after the Super Bowl is an American holiday.
It is, yeah.
So that it's almost like rather than inventing a holiday,
we just reuse one.
There, so yeah, it's definitely a possibility in the coming years for Americans, not for us.
Not for us.
Yeah, President's Day, 3rd Monday of February.
Oh, okay, great.
Anyway, let's get talking about the game. So obviously I mentioned there was all the pageantry before. I love it. I mean, a lot of people it's over the top. It's Americans, but that version of Star Spangled Banner with the piano and all that, I thought was magic. The kind of jazz touch to it and stuff like that. That was super. I loved it.
Before we move on, obviously to the coin toss. Obviously, people, maybe put some bets on how long they think the Star Spangled Banner is going to be. And there were several people around where I was last night with their phones out with timers, trying to clock it. But interestingly, it depends. I assumed maybe wrongly that it actually started as soon as whatever the instrument that they would play it with normally starts, but actually it's when the person starts singing.
The first
so
one.
I thought it was over, but actually it was under. So
those of the bets must have been panicking because he got to the end and he said the same bit 3 times at the end, and I was like, "Just go on, wait, go on."
Just hurry up, finish it. Whereas the people who were like over were like, keep going one more time, but no. But yeah,
that was super. I always find it hilarious, and as much as I am a massive playing geek, when you have a fly past on a dome stadium, I just don't understand that as well. That was another thing. But anyway, so this is something we see this throughout the NFL, and I can understand it why in the regular season why this happens. But the Super Bowl, it's obviously going to be the same logic. People would think, what's he talking about? I'll come to the question in a second. I don't understand it, the Super Bowl, because of the importance of it. So Gav, the Chiefs won the coin toss last night. They defer, right? So if those that are not sure, that basically means that the Chiefs get the ball in the second half, so that they give basically the option in the first half to the Eagles where they want to kick or where they want to receive. But for me in a Super Bowl, with everything that's going on, I think you want the ball first. You want to get the lead, is what I think. Gav, what's your thoughts on it? Is deferring the right option in a Super Bowl?
I think it just depends on how the game plays out. I think if you want my personal opinion, I think it's just something that's trendy. I'm pretty sure that it started with the Patriots. They're the ones that really made a big push under Belichick and Brady about saying we want the ball in the second half. And then all of a sudden people think psychologically. I get the point. If you can have a strong first half, knowing you're getting the ball to start the second, it puts you in a great position. But at the same time, it's the same advantage one way or the other. The question is, do you want to bet on your offense, go out and make a statement first? Do you want to bet on your defense and make that stop to open up the game? And I think everything is kind of cyclical in the league. So right now, everyone seems to want to defer. I think it could just as easily change in the future.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, you bet on your defense, you bet on your offense. If you're a Chiefs fan, surely you're going to bet on your offense. You're wanting to want Patrick Mahomes on the field on that opening drive to try and get you a 7-point lead. Say, I can see in your face you're going to disagree with me here, but I just feel like if it's the Cowboys, I want us to take the ball and I want us to go and score and get the lead. I'm not saying it's going to guarantee to happen, but that's what you want to try and do at the start of a game like that. Surely not, Sarah.
I mean, I guess I see both sides. Like I get what Gav's saying though, because if you can put your defense on first, right, and you can magically somehow pull your opposition's offense off, and your defense, is doing their job, you could end up at the end of the second quarter having been on the field for however long, for 6 minutes, scored a touchdown right before the half, and get the ball back instantly. So you are holding that your opposition off the field. You are essentially, what sort of happened last night was your opposition defense gets so tired that they can't do anything because there's nothing for them to do, and they just can't stop it. So I can see why you would maybe defer and take it in the second half. But again, like I don't think it's maybe as like rooted in anything as people maybe would think it would be.
I think logically, if you look at it, if you're winning and you get the ball at the start of the second half, you can extend your lead. If you're losing, you get the ball at the start of the second half, it gives you a chance to get back into the game. So I do get the logic of it, but just in a game like that, I think you just want to go out and you want to put points on the board and you want to take the lead.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would say that changes things. I mean, okay, fundamentally, your mission is the same at any point in the game. For the offense, you want to score on every drive. For the defense, you want to, ideally get a turnover, but certainly force a punt as quickly as possible. But the difference is if you get the ball at the start of the second half, and I know I'm kind of playing the devil's advocate to my own point now, but you are armed with information. So like you say, are you chasing the game? Are you ahead? Are you trying to control the tempo? Do you need to strike quickly? That's the one thing that's, I guess, a little bit different in terms of receiving the ball. Whereas, obviously, the team that gets the ball at the start of the game, they will usually have the first drive mapped out in terms of what they want to do early on. Starting the second half, it is a little bit different because you now have 30 minutes of context in terms of what you need to do.
Yeah, and to be fair, all of the points that we've just made were completely irrelevant in that game last night because none of them made a difference. It doesn't matter who started with the ball because it never scored. It doesn't matter who started the second half because it was already, as we'll come to, it was actually irrelevant last night what happened with the coin toss, but in theory, that's the points we've got. So let's dive quickly into the game. So we're not going to do a play-by-play because that would bore people to death, and there's probably millions of people already listening to it or watch the game back today, so we don't need a play-by-play. What we do is give you a quick summary of the game, just kind of brief idea of what happened, so that if you didn't see it or you want to hear our opinion on it, this is what's going to happen. So, as we mentioned there, Chiefs won a coin toss, deferred. Eagles took the ball to start the game. First two drives, both of them cancelled each other out. We're not going to give into the referees again. That's all been done to death. The season's finished for parking that. But the Eagles were stopped by a questionable OPI call. Having spoke to my dad, who don't know who was a referee for so many years, he said it was OPI. So I'm going to go with his call, and he reckons it was. So I'll go with that one. But then the Eagles got the ball back, went 69 yards in 7 plays, and they pushed Tush, put them into the end zone again. Another debatable penalty on that call, but against the Chiefs. But again, the Oracle, as my dad says, it was a disregarding the ball and illegal contact to the head, so it was a penalty. So we'll give them that one. So Eagles go up 7 points. Tush push gets them over there. Normal average start to the game. Nothing exciting to report at that point, was there, Sarah?
No, I was like, okay, we're getting in the rhythm, we're getting in the kind of motions. Like, Eagles just looked calm and collected. Like Jalen just looked like he was totally in the zone. And I think that was as the narrative for the rest of the game. That was what set them up.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's a bit hurts. It was just, and I said it last night. I message. He was just doing that, thinking. He was just putting the passes wherever he had space, wherever the ball could go. He was just putting in. It was just he played a simple game of football. Chiefs get the ball back, go 3 and out. Then the Eagles go back in. They get a field goal range. Jalen Hurts throws up the most ridiculous pass you've seen into. Straight intercept. It was intercepted. I think it was the Chiefs' 2 or 3 yard line. I know it pinned them down, but that was an opportunity for them to put 3 points on the board. The Chiefs, then at that point, you're thinking, right, you've got a turnover, get a bit of momentum, get yourself back into the game. Nope, they punted again. So by this point, the Chiefs have got 26 yards on 3 possessions. We already started noticing, Sarah, that Mahomes was getting a bit rattled and he was not finding his rhythm at all, was he, in these 3 possessions?
Not at all. It was such an uncharacteristic performance, and I don't think I have seen Mahomes act that way in a long time. I don't even remember the last time. Maybe it was Super Bowl against the Bucks against Brady, but he just looked like he didn't know what was happening, and I think it really all comes down to that offensive line just absolutely was falling apart every single time. And there was and the thing is, you have to give Mahomes the time, and he didn't have the time.
Yeah.
And it just looked, it was painful. Even as somebody who's not necessarily a Mahomes fan, it was painful to watch it happen.
I mean, Mahomes is probably the best at the league at getting out the pocket and making things happen. Like, when the pocket collapses, he gets out wide and he makes something happen. But even when he was getting out wide, there was just nothing open. Or the amount of passes he threw at people's feet. I mean, Kelsey wide open at one point in that first couple of drives and he threw it at his feet. It just was way out of character for Mahomes, wasn't it, Gav?
Yeah, but I think the one thing that's really important to take note of there is that Mahomes faced, I think he was pressured in 40% of his dropbacks, but the Eagles did not blitz once that game. So, I mean, just I'm guessing most of the people following at home know the terminology. Blitzing's obviously when you add like a defensive back, linebacker to the pass rush. They were getting it done with 4 people, which means that you can put people back in coverage. So we talked previously about taking the big danger men away. So, I mean, obviously Patrick Mahomes himself is a threat, but that means you can put extra coverage on Kelsey. You can put safety cover over the top to help defend against likes of Xavier Worthy. And that obviously means that you can frustrate Patrick Mahomes, who knows how to pick apart most NFL defenses.
Yeah, I mean, when I read that stat this morning about them not blitzing, I was just like, you just felt as if every play was a blitz because the D-line was getting through so easily, and obviously didn't have to blitz because the defensive linemen were getting the job done without adding anybody else in, but it was just mental. He just wasn't getting the time. After that, we then had a sequence, basically, of events that left us looking at the scoreboard completely bewildered. 7 minutes left in the half. The Eagles are now up by 10 because Jake Elliott scored a field goal. Mahomes throws a pick 6 to Cooper DeJean. 2 possessions later, he then throws a pick to Zach Bond on his own 14-yard line, which the Eagles turn into 7 points. And suddenly we're at the half-time and it's 24-0 to the Eagles. And you're thinking, what just happened in the end of that third quarter? Because it was weird. Like, you're watching, you're thinking, did that actually just happen? It was like watching somebody playing Madden. Just like, what has happened to the Chiefs? Just don't exist. Somebody's playing Madden on rookie here. I mean, yeah. So we're at the half. It's 24-0 to the Eagles. We've obviously just mentioned there that the Eagles' defensive line getting a lot of joy. But how did we get to the point where the Eagles are winning 24-0 at half time?
So I think you've got to look at both sides of the ball for this. So obviously we've talked a little bit about Mahomes struggles, and the fantastic job that the Eagles' defensive unit in particular, that front four did. But if you actually look at the other side of the ball, the challenge that we saw coming into the game is Saquon Barkley is this massive threat. And the Eagles did game plan to take it away from him. I think he did struggle with his footing a little bit at times. You saw him slipping without any real pressure on the Superdome turf. But they had an answer, and that answer was Jalen Hurts. He was making these big throws when he had to. He was even taking off in the run. I think as the game developed, this and maybe getting a bit more into the second half, but he was really making those draw plays work. He just dropped back for a second and then taking off. So I think that was the thing. The Chiefs didn't have an answer for the questions that the Eagles posed of them, but the Eagles, we knew it coming in. It was going to come down to Hurts, and they had a plan ready for that, and they took full advantage.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned on the preview show that, yeah, they can stop Saquon Barkley, but how many bodies is it going to take for them to do that, and what is that going to leave on the outside? At the end of the third quarter, AJ Brown got his touchdown, but we'd seen a couple of passes. We obviously with the OPI one, which was a big pass that could pull back, but they had that game plan, like Gav said, so that, yeah, okay, you might stop Saquon Barkley, but the Eagles were prepared for that to happen. It wasn't as if the Eagles had to think, oh, wait a minute, we need to find a plan B here. The Eagles had clearly schemed that if Barkley can't get into the game, this is what we're going to do. And I mentioned earlier on, Hurts was just picking the passes where he could see them. There was nothing fancy at all. And the Chiefs just couldn't cope with it, could they, Sarah?
No, there was no, like, there was nothing that wasn't, like, straight out of a playbook. There was no big fanciness. There was no, like, I mean, I was upset there was no Philly special, but, like, there was nothing that was, like, out of the ordinary. It was a very, like, okay, here's a one-on-one how to play offensive football. And it was great, and it worked, because maybe they did expect they would do something a bit out there and a bit different and anything. And I cannot believe that I'm going back to Mahomes, but that pick six to Cooper DeJean, that is an absolute belter of an interception. Like, for a rookie, like, coming in on his birthday, I just couldn't believe it. I sat there and I was gobsmacked because it was so quick to get it.
Yeah.
And I think that the key element was that their defense was ready to do what they had to do, and they were getting the ball by hook or by crook, and they were going for it. And then they couldn't answer it because everything was getting covered, nobody was open. It was a shambles.
I think we mentioned this on the offensive side of the ball. They schemed up very simply, a very simple game plan to work. But on the defense, again, there was nothing fancy. There was no big complex blitzes with a pulling corners from nowhere to blitz and stuff like that. It was simple, rush from the line and cover everybody else. And it was so simple in terms of the game plan. I don't know if that just took the Chiefs by surprise, that it was so simple. The game plan that the Eagles had was, let's just keep this as simple as possible. I don't know if it just completely confused the Chiefs. Let's say we're 24-0 at half time, but the Chiefs have got 26 yards of total offense at half time.
I think the other thing as well, though, is we talked a bit about Hurts and obviously the pressure on Mahomes, but despite getting 2 sacks through the game, the Eagles' offensive line, for the most part, did a superb job of protecting Jalen Hurts. He had the time to make those throws.
Yeah. Chris Jones and Henry Yu and George Karlaftis were just getting no joy at all against that offensive line of the Eagles. So, as we mentioned there, when we joked about it on, the Chiefs get the ball to start the second half, and you're thinking, right, they're going to come out, bit of fight, bit of spirit, they're going to try and go for this. Nope. 5 plays, 15 yards in the opening drive of the second half. So I think they got a first down on first down, they got the first down, I think, the second down, but then they had back-to-back sacks on the first and the second down of the next series. And suddenly they're backed up, and suddenly the ball's back with the Eagles. So the Eagles then just continue with the same game plan as they've had for the first half. They get a field goal, and then they get a touchdown to Devonta Smith, which was an absolute cracker. And suddenly, the Eagles are 34-0 up, and we're only 2 minutes left in the third quarter. So at this point in the game, I know, Sarah, in your pub, the Chiefs fans had chucked it at half time, but before, so we're at 24-0 at the half, and we're thinking, Chiefs have got a chance to come back in this. Had we given up by the Chiefs by this point, or was it we got to 34-0, we kind of thought, that's it done now, or had we already given up before that? Like based on what we were watching.
I mean, I had given up on it. I was like, nothing is happening, because there wasn't even an element of, oh, okay, something is working. They hadn't even got they hadn't even got the opposition side.
Yes.
They hadn't crossed the 50-yard. I was like, we can't get. How are you getting to that point if you can't even get to the 50? Like, it wasn't even just like, oh, we're at the 45. No, we can't get to the 50. We could hardly get to the 40. Like. And it was that at that point as well. Like, I was pulling up these analytics and stuff. Mahomes had a negative 0.62 expected points added per dropback in the first 3 quarters. It's the worst of his career. It's the second worst for any Super Bowl quarterback since 2000. It was awful. Like, and I don't hate to be like, oh, it's all his fault, but what is happening? What happened? Like, so yeah, at this point, I knew at the half, I was like, I think we're done here. And then that was, I think, just the nail, just to prove a point. I was, no.
We've obviously seen big comebacks in Super Bowls, and at 24-0, you're thinking there's still a chance here. But see, when they came out in that first drive of the third quarter, I thought, this is the exact same as you've just done for that whole first half. You've changed nothing at that half. Or Anthony's tried to change stuff, and it's just nothing's changed. At that point, I thought, I can't see unless by some miracle the Chiefs are they're cooked here. I mean, like you mentioned there, they weren't in the Eagles half. So when the Eagles go 34-0 up, which is 2 minutes left in the third quarter, the next drive was the first time the Chiefs got into the Eagles half, and it took a 40 or 50 yard pass to Xavier Worthy. So it wasn't as if they built up and got to it. It was a long pass. They got him into it. Do you know what I mean?
It wasn't like, you're talking about like comebacks. I saw a lot of people at halftime bringing up the 28-3 Falcons and Patriots game, but I knew watching this that it was not the same. It was not comparable. So yeah.
Yeah, but at the end of the third, just about at the end of the third quarter, so we've 2 minutes to go because there was something happened after that. But it's 34-0 to the Eagles. 2 minutes left in the third quarter. What's your thoughts at this point?
I think, it's funny because Sid mentioned that we did have that up in the socials, both kind of lead up to the game and beforehand was the infamous 28-3 game. And I think if you look at the meme, it was sort of 2 and a bit minutes left in the third when the Falcons still had that lead. And then I think, 34-0, I think it's 2 minutes 40. So you're pretty much at that same time marker. But I think that last touchdown to get to 34-0, that's probably when I felt, okay, no, this is definitely over. And I think the reason for that is because actually, if you look at the Eagles' 2 possessions in that half, at the start of the second half, they kind of showed that they could have their way with the Chiefs' defense either way about it. So they actually had a 12-play drive, 74 yards. Okay, it ended up in a field goal, but they took almost 7 minutes off the clock. And I think most of us thought, okay, they're going to come and do the same again. And no, they just actually throw a bomb to Devonta Smith. And so I think at that point you knew, there's not, obviously the Chiefs aren't moving the ball, and the Eagles can just keep scoring however they see fit.
Well, it was. I wish when you're talking about kind of obviously how they were in entire control of the clock. They were doing it in the first half. They were doing it again in the third quarter, and they did it all the way through in the fourth. And I was sitting with one of my friends, came along, who isn't really a massive American football fan, has like tried to get into it this year, and obviously like I'm trying to explain while the game's happening. And Gav, you had used like the perfect analogy for like a Super Bowl and for any like how you play an American football game, and it's a chess game. And it's call and response, it's what are you going to do to combat it? And there was nothing. It literally was just like the Eagles walked in and just went, checkmate. There it is, right there.
It's all joking. The Chiefs are playing checkers and the Eagles are playing chess. I mean, the thing is, like you mentioned there, Gav, so at this point it's what, do my sums here, 27-0 because they've got the late field goals went through. The Chiefs go for it in fourth down on their own 46 and don't convert. So they're thinking, okay, we've gave the Eagles field position, let's try and keep them to a field goal. One play, 46 yards, it's the end zone. So it's like as if the Eagles then just started playing with the Chiefs. It's like, well, you know what, we could drive to your 1 yard line, do a tush push, but you know what, here, 46 yards, touchdown, we're 34 nothing up, good night. I mean, that's kind of the way that happened. But then for some reason the Chiefs, I know the Eagles started to pull some starters right at this point, but then the Chiefs decided, oh wait a minute, it's the fourth quarter, we're in the Super Bowl, we should be playing. Where did that come from? Because then they scored 3 touchdowns in between 2 Eagles field goals, so the Eagles obviously were fine, but it was like, where's that been for the rest of the game? There's 3 touchdowns. I mean, so it ended up the game ended up, it finished 40 to the Eagles, 22 to the Chiefs, and we never get the 3-peat. The Eagles became the Super Bowl champions, but still now, we're talking, nearly 24 hours since kickoff. Still can't figure out how that happened. Still a bit like, I can't believe that was so one-sided. I was expecting a tight game. Obviously, I predicted the Chiefs to sneak it, but I never seen that coming at all. No.
I don't think anybody did. Trying to look for answers. I mean, I don't have a specific axe to grind with the Chiefs, but I will always tend to go against the dynasties. It was the same when the Eagles beat the Patriots. I backed them in that situation as well. And the only thing I'm going to say is, who have the Chiefs really beaten this year? I mean, we talked about the Ravens, who they beat in week 1, but you can bounce back from week 1. They've had 2 playoff games before the Super Bowl. We know the Texans have their shortcomings, and I think despite the presence of Josh Allen, the Bills are probably not a complete team. I think similar to what Mahomes does for the Chiefs, actually, Josh Allen does elevate the talent around them. But this is an Eagles team that just scored 50 points in the conference championship.
Yeah.
The Chiefs have not played another team like this all season long. And 15-2 regular season record, but yeah, they've never played anyone to this standard. And I think that's what's hit them out the blue is the Eagles themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned in the previous show that the Chiefs had 9 1-possession victories in the lead up to the Super Bowl. They were just doing enough. This was just doing enough in the Super Bowl was never going to be enough. Do you know what I mean? But
they weren't even doing enough.
No, they weren't.
They were doing nothing.
Until 2 minutes left in the third quarter, they hadn't even a point on the board. They hadn't even reached the Eagles' half of the field. Do you know what I mean? So, like you say, it wasn't as if they were keeping themselves just in the game and it just wasn't enough. They were never in the game. No. Never in this game. And, I mean, that didn't really bother me who won the game. I just had a feeling the Chiefs would do it. But, I would never say, I know that the Eagles put up the 50 points on the Commanders, but I still wouldn't have at any point thought they could do that performance. That was big. That was a better performance than the one against the Commanders, despite the points. It was a complete performance. It wasn't as if when the Commanders gave up loads, like a couple of turnovers and stuff like that, and the Eagles just took. They only took 28 points off the Commanders on turnovers. They just kept going and they just kept going, and the Chiefs didn't have a chance really, did they, the whole game, Sarah?
No, they weren't in it at all. There was no. I literally was gobsmacked, and I still can't actually fully vocalize what it was. But I was just sitting there like, what the heck is going on? There was not a light was on. Nobody was home.
Yeah,
and it was good night.
I'm just looking at the play-by-play summary. So the Eagles punted on the opening drive. They then punted. Where's that? When they were 17-0 up again, and then they didn't turn the ball back over again until they went for it on 4th down just before the 2-minute warning. Every other drive in the game, they scored.
Yep.
It doesn't matter who you're playing. If you're scoring in nearly every drive you're on that field, nobody's going to beat you.
You're winning.
Nobody's going to beat you. It doesn't matter how good their offense is or how good their defense is. If you're scoring all those drives, then game's yours, isn't it, Gav?
Yeah, I think as you say, the Eagles were just it was a complete performance in all three phases of the game. So, as I say, Jalen Hurts really stepped up to the mark. I mean, for me, I know that sometimes it's questionable, that they seem to hand the MVP award to quarterbacks. I do think it was deserved in this occasion. We've talked about the defense, got after Mahomes all day long, forced 3 turnovers. But I guess the other part is special teams, because I know that Jake Elliott has not had the best of seasons for the Eagles. He made his field goals when he had to. He certainly had to hit one, at 7-0 up, try and put the game into a 2-score margin early on. And I think both his field goals actually he had to retake because the Eagles suffered penalties.
Yep.
And that probably brings us on to the one differentiator. So I know we don't want to talk about the refs, and I'm not going to talk about individual decisions, but the Eagles did actually have more penalties than the Chiefs during the game, but it was almost the timing of them. And the Eagles, when they did have flags, they were actually able to overcome them most of the time. But the flags that the Chiefs gave up were at such critical moments in the game. They were extending drives. They were given, I think there was an unsportsmanlike that gave the Eagles a first down when they were facing a second and long situation. So I think these are just, you talk about fine margins, and I think the crazy thing about this game is there's not one single thing that won it for the Eagles or cost it for the Chiefs, but it was just another thing that you added on to the list. The Chiefs as a team were not themselves.
Yeah, I mean, there was 2 big penalties I can think of. So the one we mentioned was the one, it was I can't remember what they called it, was unnecessary roughness when they got that, get the hit to the helmet. And it looks soft, but when you think about it realistically, guys up in the air try and catch a ball, it hits him in the helmet, it's pass interference. The other one was the Amenahue one was just unforgivable. He's lined up over the ball as
over
a defensive
the
line.
ball.
Spags calls up an absolute brilliant blitz, and he nailed Hurts on it. But then suddenly, I think that was like 3rd and 4 or something like that. I can't remember. And it gave him the first down. The sack would have forced him to punt the ball because the sack was so good. And suddenly the Eagles got a free first down because of Menahue, and it's not even close. He's lined up way over the ball. He just looks to his left and he can see it. It's just poor decision making by him to do that.
Well, yeah, he was. I don't like to obviously call players out the mistakes, but he was edging across every single time. If you go back and watch it, you can see him pushing the boundary of it. So it was only a matter of time before he does go over, because obviously if you're going, you will do it and think you're not going to get caught doing it, and you will get caught doing it. But that's how this game works. You're going to try and take them for those little things they're not necessarily going to pick up. And it was when it caught to him afterwards, and he was absolutely livid. He was like, if you design a play that's actually going to kick something going in your team, and one of your players messes it, then obviously you're not going to be happy.
The thing is with Menahue as well, see what you say, if he's edging towards the line, they'll maybe let him away with it once or two, the officials, but they'll say to him, you're getting close, and then eventually the referees will just stop warning him, because they're like, we've warned you and you're still doing it, so we're just going to flag you instead. So there's maybe, if it's blatant, like the one that was flagged was blatant, so if he'd done that the first time, then they would have flagged him. But the officials were noticed he was getting close and close, and they would have said to him, just watch what you're doing,
pack it in. Yeah.
And he just never. It was stupid. So like you said, Gav, there was a number of things that caused Chiefs to lose that game. It wasn't just things like that, and it was just another thing that the Chiefs, it was just ill discipline, just like across the whole. It was just, I think you mentioned earlier on, Sarah, the Eagles were just locked in. There was no mistakes. It was simple football, and they had a game plan. The Chiefs just seemed to be ill disciplined. Their game plan went out the window. Nothing was working, and it just became a bit of a shambles from a Chiefs point of view, to be honest with you, to put it bluntly. Right, let's move on. So, but as we said, Eagles won 40-22. In the previous show, if anybody listened or watched, we picked some key players that we thought would have an impact on the game, or their performance would impact on the game one way or another. So what we'll do is revisit the players that we picked and see how they shaped up and how our opinions kind of were right or wrong, or what. So, Sarah, you picked for Devonta Smith for the Eagles, and you picked Travis Kelce. Is to be basically, you said these two players need to turn up for their teams to win. One turned up, one didn't.
And I got one of two. Like, woohoo! Devontae Smith was great. 6 receptions, 89 yards, scored that pivotal 46-yard touchdown, which was that final nail in the coffin. Which is also, I didn't realise he's the first player drafted from Alabama to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
What a nice achievement to top off a great performance. So yeah, congrats to him. He was fab. And then I don't know what happened with Kelsey. It was 4 receptions for 39 yards, not a catch in the first half. And obviously he's now obviously surpassed Jerry Rice's record for most career Super Bowl receptions during the game. But I don't really know if you really celebrate that at the moment. But it's odd, like, it's so interesting because we spoke earlier about how Mahomes was obviously, when he was passing to Kelsey, it was so low. He was almost like he was having to turn and like drop to try and catch it. And obviously that's maybe an issue with Mahomes, but Kelsey's made those catches before. He's done that before. So I just don't think it was the day. It wasn't. Something was just off.
Yeah.
And obviously there's all this talks now of, will he come back? Will he not come back? And I guess we'll see. I think if they had won, we would maybe be having a different conversation. That I maybe think he would have hung up. It would have been, I'm okay. But now that they've not won, do you come back and prove a point?
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think it's not about you getting one right and one wrong here. You basically said Travis Kelce had to show up for the Eagles. It wasn't that you were hanging your hat on Travis Kelce being the first happened. You basically said,
if he doesn't show up, they don't win.
Yeah, and that's what. Well, again, it's another factor to why that wasn't the main reason that it won. But just while we're on Travis Kelce, I think he will hang up. I think his decision will be. I think if you've already made that decision, because he's probably in his head thinking, if we win this, I'm going to retire. You don't make that decision after the game. You've made that decision already. To then go back on that after you've lost, I think mentally probably going to be difficult. I think that's probably where Jason Kelce done that as well. He probably decided that I was going no matter what, and he did. And I think Travis is. I think he'll go. Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. Right, so the 2 players that I picked. So I went for the Eagles. I picked Zach Bond, and for the Chiefs, I picked Joe Tooney. Again, said these 2 players are going to be key to their team's success or lack of success. So Zach Bond, I think I nailed that one. He led the Eagles with tackles. Let me just probably set his head at a second. Seven tackles, 3 solo tackles, 1 pass deflection, 1 quarterback hit, and obviously that crucial interception. That was a great interception as well, because he watched Mahomes at home. It was a proper QB spy on that one, and Mahomes just didn't see him. And it was a good diving catch. Again, Mahomes threw it loads. Zach Bond managed to catch it. How could Travis Kelce not do that?
Don't know.
But yeah, I mean, that interception was at a key point in the game when the Chiefs were trying to get back into the game, and it killed it for them. So great performance by Zach Bond. Like I say, led his team in tackles across the whole game. Joe Tooney, I said, he's going to have to be the guy that's going to have to cope with the pressure for Mahomes to be standing upright to win the game. I think my exact words were, the Chiefs can't win this if Mahomes is on his backside. Paraphrase myself, I said something to that line. Yeah. That was pretty true, wasn't it? 6 sacks for that Eagles defensive line. Not even the Eagles defense. 6 sacks for the Eagles defensive line, because they didn't send anybody else to him. Joe Tooney struggled all night, but the whole offensive line for the Chiefs struggled. But yeah, and I think I was speaking to a Chiefs fan today, and he basically just said, look, offensive line's a shambles. We're playing players out of position. It was going to break at some point. They've been bending all season, and suddenly the Super Bowl broke.
Well, there's that moment that he actually gets sacked by his own player. His own player tackles him and takes him down, and I was like, oh my gosh! I was like, we have no awareness of what's going on.
Yeah, those back-to-back sacks as well. That was I mean, the Eagles' defense didn't need any more firing up, but to get back-to-back sacks as well was just crazy. I mean, and the sacks came from across. In fact, we'll come on to the Eagles D in a minute. Talking about these 2 players. So Zach Bond absolutely led that Eagles defense, and from the linebacker position, Joe Tooney done nothing. I said, yeah, Mahomes was on his backside. The Chiefs lost. There we go. Gav, you picked AJ Brown for the Eagles, and you picked Chris Jones for the Chiefs. Thinking back on the game now, I think you're the same as Sarah. One showed up, one didn't.
Yeah, I think that's the theme of it. Isn't really the guys that won did their jobs, and the guys that lost really did not have an impact at all. And I think that was the case for me. I guess AJ Brown's stat line, actually nowhere near how he did in the previous Super Bowl appearance 2 years ago. 3 receptions, 43 yards, 1 touchdown. But I guess the thing is, if you look at this as being a team effort, every single catch that he made, obviously the big one being the go ahead touchdown, not even the go ahead touchdown, but like extending the lead before the half. But even his other receptions, they might not have been like deep bombs, but they're moving the chains, extending drives, just keeping that Eagles offense ticking over, and just giving another option for Jalen Hurts, and something that the Chiefs defensively had to worry about all game long. I think if you actually look at the Eagles' offense as a whole, nobody had a monster game. But you can talk. Obviously, Sayers talked about Devonta Smith, Jahan Dotson had a good game. Dallas Goedert again made a couple of key plays every single moment. It wasn't just padding stats; it actually helped just move the Eagles that little bit closer to victory. And then on the flip side, with Chris Jones, who I don't think this is any personal criticism of his own performance, but he did not log anything. I think the most significant contribution that was picked up from this game is that he was having a meltdown on the sidelines. I think it was a DeAndre Hopkins drop that kind of absolutely broke him. So I think what that just goes to show, because he is a fantastic player. He's been a key part of the Chiefs' success, but this game got to the Chiefs mentally. It was getting in their heads. This is the biggest deficit that Patrick Mahomes has faced his entire career. And what is supposed to be, the story was this is, the biggest game of this franchise's history. And they just didn't show up. And I think actually, these things weigh on you. I think that's the only explanation that I can offer.
Yeah, you say Chris Jones has been a massive leader for that team. Like, if you see someone like him in the sideline not being able to cope with what's going on, he's the leader. He's meant to be the rock of the team. If he can't handle it, then you can't expect the rest of the players to follow. Like, they're going to follow suit. They're going to follow that lead. If he's gave up in the game, or he's decided that we're not going to win anymore, then why should anybody else believe that they're going to win the game? Is kind of, like you say, that it's a great point you make, Gav. The Chiefs lost this game in their own head. I don't know when that happened, when it was the start of the game, where the game kicked off, whether, I don't know, at some point the Chiefs mentally lost this game way, way early on, and whether it was the first drive, whether it was in the locker room, whether it was this week, the Chiefs lost it mentally well before that. Good point you make about the Eagles' offense there, Gav. Across that there, we say there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 receivers with at least 2 receptions, including Saquon Barkley caught 6 passes as well. So, as we mentioned, when they took Saquon Barkley's running game out of the equation, then let's just spread the ball across the field. And it worked. I mean, the average catch went for 13 yards. So every pass that Jalen Hurts threw went for an average of a first down every single time. The only person that didn't was Barkley. Barkley averaged 6.7 per catch. So almost a first down on every catch for him, but the rest of them all went over a first down for every catch they made. So yeah, it's just simple for the Eagles. So right, so we kind of mentioned on already. Let's move on to talk about the Eagles' defense. So some stats for you: sacked Mahomes 6 times, 2 interceptions, including a pick 6, 1 fumble recovery. Time of possession. When we mentioned the way the Eagles win this game is keep Mahomes off the field or taking the ball off him. They've done both. Time of possession, the Eagles had 37 minutes to the Chiefs 23. And as we mentioned already, the Chiefs didn't get in the Eagles half until 2 minutes left in the third quarter. And at that point, they had 65 total yards. 2 minutes left in the third quarter, and the Kansas City Chiefs have 65 total offensive yards. I'm seeing, I'm reading these stats in front of me, I still can't believe them. You know what I mean? It's just like, we said, Gav, like I said, they need to keep Mahomes off the field, they need to take the ball off him. They've done both. Mahomes is on his backside all the time. It was a perfect performance from the Eagles defense, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think I don't think I've ever seen a performance quite as as dominant as this. And I mean, over the years, and I guess I've been watching Super Bowls probably for about 25 years now. You quite often come up in situations where it's, number one offense against number one defense, and it's surprising how often it is the defense that comes out on top. That the previous loss in the Super Bowl that the Chiefs under Mahomes had was against the Bucks, when that was really keyed by a big defensive performance. But they did it in every facet of the game. I don't think I don't think I can quite believe just how much they took out of the Chiefs. It really has been I think a stunner for everyone watching this.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned there about Patrick Mahomes. Sarah, you called it. At one point, he was limping. There's something wasn't right. Where it was mentally, but there's been chat of maybe a potential concussion because he took a hit in I think it was the first quarter. His head did hit the ground, but surely that needs to have been picked up with it. If that was the case, that would have been picked up because it's picked up every other time something gets concussion. So if that wasn't picked up, there's something there. But to me, he was limping a lot. Something not right there, was there?
I mean, my theory is that, and I've said this since it happened, I don't think he's been the same since he played the Jags in the 2022 season playoffs, and he was injured because that ankle was not good, and going off back and going to the locker room and getting adrenaline essentially shot in your ankle is not the answer to your problems, and the dynasty cannot last if he is not performing, so something has to happen, and I don't know why we've not addressed it sooner, because you can even see it during the regular season. He gets to about the fourth quarter and he starts looking not like himself, because obviously it must be sore. I am not sitting here thinking that Patrick Mahomes is perfect and can play on a butchered ankle, and I think that's maybe a point that we need to actually have a look at it and see what the issue is and evaluate it, because you can't play like that forever, because then you just drive yourself into a point of nothing and you can't come back from it. So yeah, thanks. Everybody can thank the Jaguars for doing that.
What happened was the Jags ended this dynasty 3 years ago. Is basically what
3
happened.
years ago.
That's what
And
we're
when listen, everybody, you'll thank us later for this.
playing the long game.
Yeah, really playing the long game. So, you end up with the fifth pick as the Chiefs fail in the Super Bowl.
There you go. Thank you. Thanks everybody. Thanks. I set this up. It was the Jags all along. That is it.
But yeah, I mean, there's something. He just had no movement. He couldn't. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from that Eagles defensive line, but he just could not escape the pressure at all. Like, you're used to seeing Mahomes spinning out or moving, and there was one play where he did do it, and then he threw a very good pass to Worthy, wasn't it, for the touchdown?
Yep.
That's the Mahomes you're used to seeing.
Mm-hmm. That's like, and it's nope, and there was no like amazing, I'm going down, I'm going to throw the ball. It was even like, because even when I mentioned earlier was throwing the ball to the floor for Kelsey, I don't even know if there's something up with his arm, because it just didn't look. I mean, obviously I know there's the one where obviously he's throwing it and he actually got shoved, hence why it didn't go where it wants to go. But yeah, no, something's not right. Yeah.
Then the question I'm going to ask, and this is just being completely devil's advocate, the end of the third quarter and the whole fourth quarter, he finished with 250. He finished with more yards than Jalen Hurts. I know Jalen Hurts came out, but that was way late on. He finished with an average of 8 yards per pass with 257 yards. All that came at the end of the game. But where was that? Where was the arm? Where was the earlier in the game? Is what Chiefs fans have got to be asking. I get the Eagles probably took the pressure off a wee bit and they probably took a step back. But he's still got to make the throws. He's still got to make the passes. His wide receivers are still got to get open. So where was that for the first 3 quarters of the game, Gav?
I think the one thing that I'm going to say, though, and I know this is probably kicking a team while they're I think they're 6 feet under, they're not just down. But that was the backups.
Yeah.
You guys who were actually getting a run out. the most unforeseeable thing at all is that actually the Eagles were just kind of letting the lads get some game time
Yep.
in the fourth quarter. So this is the thing, like you've got guys in there who, okay, it's the Super Bowl, you're expected to be able to step up if necessary, but I don't think anyone's expecting just a wholesale change of the personnel. I think you're in a mindset now where you're on the field, you're comfortably ahead. I don't think that Mahomes was facing that team that was beating him up for 3 quarters at that stage. So I do think that it's there's plenty of teams that go to maybe not prevent defense, but softer coverages when they've got a big lead. Just try and give the small things, bleed the clock. But yeah, I think it wasn't just that the personnel change. I think was probably a big factor in that for me.
Makes it even more embarrassing though, doesn't it? That in the fourth quarter, it wasn't like within the last 2 minutes. In the fourth quarter, the Eagles had their starters out that game. So, I mean,
They started mixing up my Gatorade with 8 minutes to go. 8 minutes. They started mixing it up, and I was like, "You're kidding me on!" I was like, "This is not how it happens."
well, all those players will be happy with their appearance bonuses anyway.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Nobody had a scenario where Kenny Pickett was kneeling out an 18-point advantage.
What a guy! Good for him. Good for you, Kenny. Good for you.
That'll be a quiz question in years to come. Who was a quarterback that was on the field when the Eagles won the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Right, let's move on then. So, game's done. We've analysed both teams. Quick wee bit for you. So, obviously, as you mentioned, Gav, Jalen Hurts got MVP. Alternate MVP for me would have been Josh Sweat. If MVP was decided at the half that Josh Sweat had it in the bag, nobody was touching him. 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 3 quarterback hits. And him plus the rest of the line were key to Patrick Mahomes, just as we mentioned, just not getting going at all. He absolutely dominated, and I thought he was superb all night for the Eagles. Sarah, who would you have given it to?
I mean, you've took my pick, which is fine.
I sent these out the notes about 2.
You did. That's what I said, and it was right there, and literally in black and white as I'm looking at it. You took my pick, which is fine. And then I know who Gav's going to pick, so I'm not going to pick that person and is going to fight for the corner. But I mean, I think Devontae Smith had a great game. Like, he was there when you needed him to do it. Again, that was the final nail in the coffin. I think that's really what drove it home, that was it. There was no comeback from this. Cool, calm, and collected, and yeah, overall a great performance.
Gav, so why was it Kenny Pickett then?
Yeah. No, I think I kind of hinted at it earlier. Now I'm going to be the case for the defence here because, as I say, sometimes it doesn't take very much for the winning quarterback to be handed the MVP in the Super Bowl. But for me, coming in, I've said it already, Jalen Hurts, he was the man that had the question mark against his name. We knew that Saquon Barkley was the offensive linchpin of this Eagles team, and the Chiefs were going to game plan to shut him down, which they did. They did stuff him up. But all through that game, right from the first quarter, Hurts was making throws when he had to. Obviously, he hit that dagger to Devonta Smith in the third quarter, that he was making conversions in fourth down. I'd say there's a big one to Jahan Dotson early on in the game. As the game evolved, he was taking off in those quarterback draw plays. So I think, as much as there's not an epic stat line, I think, as I say, there was this is a guy that came in with expectations, and repeatedly throughout that game, he was making crucial plays. And yeah, had probably one of the most, dominant Super Bowl wins that we've seen for some time.
Yeah, I mean, I was ready to go, Sarah.
No, I was going to say, I know we've obviously hardly mentioned Saquon Barkley because obviously there was nothing happening for him, but I think it is just a total. Obviously, we know what he does. He sits on the sideline and he reads books and he does all those things, and he's just pretty much happy to go along with the flow and whatever. But I think he was he must have known in the first quarter that this is the game plan. They're going to just stop everything I'm doing, and he was never once opposed by it. He was never once I'm going to do it. And I think he is also a key player in why they won, because there was never a big flashy moment from him to be like, I need the ball and I need this and I need that. There was no screaming, there was no huffing and puffing. And that it was a team game. They were all in it. They were all rooting for each other. And I think that is another key point for why they did it.
Yeah, 100%. We mentioned on Thursday night when we done the preview show that that's what's going to be key, is that what are they going to do? How are they going to scheme against Bartlett? I think the words I said, there's not been a running back where teams are terrified of them for a long time in the league. The Chiefs set up purely to game plan for Saquon Barkley and just seem to forget that the Eagles actually have other weapons. Mm-hmm. I mean, ultimately that's what happened. And Hurts, I'm going to say Hurts 100% deserved the MVP. I'm not denying that, but if an alternative for me would have been Josh Sweat, but Hurts 100% deserved it. It was, like you say, Gav, often it's very easy to give the quarterback the MVP because he threw the touchdowns or whatever, but Hurts' complete performance did deserve it. Right, so what I'm going to do, I know the notes, I'm going to skip a bit, guys. I'm going to just come to what's next first. I know I've changed the notes around because we're talking about the team, so let's just continue with that theme at the moment. So let's talk about what's next for these teams then. So the game's done, we've talked about the analysis of the game. So let's start with the Chiefs first. So the three-peat is gone. It's not happening. Travis Kelce, I think, retires. He's then gone. They've got some very key players that are going to be free agents next summer. Where do the Chiefs go for here, Gav?
Well, I think that is the big question, isn't it? A lot of it comes down to who returns. I mean, the Chiefs, as we've said already, they lost a Super Bowl quite heavily back in 2021. And, they continued to be consistently, next year, I think the Bengals made the Super Bowl, but they still made the championship game, Kansas City, and then obviously went on to get 2 Super Bowl wins and then last night's loss. So when it happened before, it didn't set them back. They've also had to deal with the loss of players previously. Of course, there's a lot of money committed to Patrick Mahomes. Tyreek Hill, prime example of a player that's had to get moved on from the team for largely for money reasons. But we're now going to go through that cycle again. And when you think about great dynasties, and because the Chiefs are a dynasty at this point, one of the things that you think about with the Patriots is Tom Brady was never the best paid quarterback. You had a lot of other players that were not taking top dollar to play for that team. Ultimately, the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes as things stand, and I don't think there's any reason why he won't be back. They have Andy Reid, one of the probably one of the best head coaches in the league, if not all time. So there's always these pieces that Kansas City will be able to build around, but it's about who is going to take one for the team basically, and make the salary cap work for them, because as it stands, the Chiefs are a team that now has a lot of money committed in a number of key players, and as we've seen, they have a lot of holes in certain positions that need to be addressed.
Yeah. So looking at the free agency list for the Chiefs currently this season, so I'll count the key ones. There's some key other ones in there are, so they're losing DeAndre Hopkins, Justin Reed, Charles Omenihu, Hollywood Brown, Justin Watson, Samaje Perine, Nick Bolton, Juju Smith-Schuster, Kareem Hunt, McCall Hardman. So basically losing all the wide receivers apart from Xavier Worthy and Sky Moore. Rashee Rice, we don't know what's happening with him. Omenihu's a massive player for them. So is Nick Bolton. They're losing key. It's not just people that are easy to be replaced. They are losing key pieces of their team going into next season. So it's going to be interesting to see how that develops in the off-season for them. Obviously, they're not going to be picking high up the board either, so they can't do that either. So, yeah, so Sarah, where do you think the Chiefs are going to go from here? Do you think that's the dynasty done? Do you think they reset and come back next year in 2 years' time? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, yeah, they have. Maybe it is done. I guess the big thing, obviously, Gavin, you mentioned there about how like the big thing about Tom Brady when he was with the Patriots was that he wasn't making all the money. He was like, no, I want you to build a team around me, and I guess it'll be interesting because obviously one of the Chiefs' main nemesis is the Bengals, and Joe Burrow has come out and said that he will restructure his contract so he can keep everybody around him. And is that the key element again? Is that Burrow knows that he needs like his squad around him to continue to build upon, and is that what needs to happen with the Chiefs now? Is that he actually needs to be like, well, hang on, I need these people because we need to continue to build on it. So that I think is the interesting. If they can find a way to do that, then maybe it's not all over and maybe it's just a bad year. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I was furiously typing it to try and bring up how much cap space the Chiefs have got, but you finished your sentence before I got there.
Oh, so sorry.
The Chiefs, where are they? The Chiefs, where are they? Chiefs, 11 million in cap space at the moment.
It's not even that. Yeah.
Not a lot.
Not a lot to work with.
It's not a lot to work with at all. So, yeah.
And I guess the other thing you think about is with free agents in terms of who you could bring in. And again, I'm drawing that parallel with the Patriots, is that they had a strong track record of bringing in big name players who really wanted to get themselves that ring. Obviously, had likes of Randy Moss, Chad Ochocinco. I don't think Terrell Owens. I think Owens went to Cincinnati late in his career, but yeah, as I say, you've got between Ochocinco and Randy Moss, two of the biggest receivers. Corey Dillon, running back, one that went to the Patriots. You had Darrelle Revis. A lot of players would go to be part of that setup, but the way that the Chiefs lost there, as I say, you've got Andy Reid, you've got Patrick Mahomes. They were quite heavily beaten. So if you are someone who is not as money focused that wants to go to a competitor, and you're looking around the league, is Kansas City your destination of choice? You've got other teams out there like the Buffalo Bills, like Detroit, who have a lot of pieces, like Baltimore Ravens. There's other teams out there who maybe you're thinking that they are actually the stronger package. And I know obviously the Chiefs are the ones that got to the Super Bowl, but I think we know they've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, especially you see the way they lost that game. They lost that game mentally. It wasn't like they went out in that field and they were just beaten by the better team. Well, obviously they were, but you know what I mean. But it wasn't as if they went toe to toe and the better team won. The Chiefs checked out of that game very early, and that's worrying to see. But that's probably worrying to see from an Andy Reid point of view, and a front office point of view. Is like, what happened for those players to check out of that game so quickly? And I mentioned they had 11 million cap space. That is actually the third lowest in the league of the teams that are in the black, if that makes sense. A lot of teams are way over the cap at the moment. The Chiefs have got the third lowest amount of teams that are actually in the black, so they don't have a lot of space. So they're going to have to do some magical moves with numbers to make options available. So let's flip over to Gav, when you go, make one point.
At one point, I think we've kicked the Chiefs off.
Sorry.
I'll probably offer one silver line for them. What I don't think they'll do is I don't think they will panic.
No.
This is a well-run franchise.
Yeah.
You're not going to go and commit, 60 million to, Xavier Worthy or whoever at this stage just for the sake of it. They are going to, if it does mean, it takes a couple of years to get back to the Super Bowl, that's what will happen. And so you look at the Patriots, as much as they were successful, I think they had a 7-year gap between Super Bowls at one point, Super Bowl appearances. It was a 4-year gap. But I just can't see the Chiefs kind of rushing. When you've still got Mahomes in his 20s, there's plenty of time on their side. As long as you've got him there, you always have a window.
I mean, that's another reason why I think Kelsey will go, because I think the success, they're going to have to do a bit of rebuilding, and is he going to have the patience to hang around for that? I don't think he will. I think that's what one of these wild. Right, let's flip over. Eagles. So again, equally some key players that get into free agency this year. The last time they won the Super Bowl, they went one and done in the playoffs the following year. How do you predict next season looking for the Eagles, Sarah?
I mean, currently look at the numbers; it's looking pretty good. They're currently moving. They've got a current cap space of approximately 24.6 million. I know there's some obviously your favorite player of current time, Dan Josh, is free agent, so he's one that will need looked at. I mean, I think his performance has maybe sold him to continue. But I mean, your other key is obviously like Zach Bowen is obviously another one that's up as free agency's up. And like Milton Williams is another one. Like a lot of their there's two of their offensive linemen and a lot of obviously their defense. But I think they could do it. Obviously, Nick Sirianni's contract is up next year as well, end of next year, so he would be needing a contract extension depending on how they perform next year. But again, like I think his value is as they are. Like I think it's obvious that the team like him, and I know there was backs and forth obviously with him and Hurts and what was going on there, but I feel like we've maybe let it sit now. It looked good. They looked happy with each other. I mean, obviously you're happy when you're in a Super Bowl, but there was nothing that was like get a load of this guy kind of situation.
Yeah.
So I think they're optimistic. I think they have the combination of that offensive talent and that defensive power already with the strong coaches. Obviously, they're going to lose their offensive coordinator because he's off to the Saints. God love him.
Why?
Why? I guess he wants to.
I know.
Well, do you know what? No, I can't.
Saints?
I can't even
Like challenge.
A challenge. It's a suicide mission. Like no, I can't even help it. But yeah, I guess that'll be their big thing for them is can they continue with a new offensive coordinator in position? But again, it was simple football.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything crazy. There was nothing like, whoa, what's happening here? So I actually think they're in for a good luck next year as long as they all keep healthy and people come back who need to come back.
Yeah, I mean Zach Bowen was one you mentioned that he was saying a 1 year deal, so that was him. The thing is, when you've won a Super Bowl, it's easy to bring your free agents back if you want to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You said to Josh Sweat, he'll want paid, but there's no way he'll not be back. Do you know what I mean?
No,
Zach
the
Bowen will be
only.
back.
The only big person is Brandon Graham, but it's rumoured that he's going to retire because obviously he's now 36.
Right.
He's had the storybook finish.
Yeah.
We're done.
Yeah. He'll retire. But Josh Sweat, Zach Bowen, Mickey Beckton, like you mentioned, a couple other players there, they're not ones that are going to be difficult for me to hold on to. I mean, Josh Sweat's probably going to be the only one to ask for a decent bump in his pay out of all those players, which they say they can afford to do that as well. Yeah, what's your thoughts on Eagles for next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think in free agency, that's the big thing you've got to look at is the age of the players. Because I guess the one thing you've got to be mindful of is anyone that's coming off a rookie deal, that's probably the time that you want to get paid in your career because, with injuries, even just loss of form, nothing's for certain. So it's probably the time where most players want to maximise their value. So those are the ones that you really need to watch out for. I guess sort of more broadly, the challenge for the Eagles now is, I think we've said it a few times in previous episodes, the Eagles for a long time this year kind of flew under the radar. I think getting towards the end of the regular season, people were starting to see, this is a team that's got momentum. And, I think they've really proved their worth in the playoffs. But now they've got a target in their back. Everyone is going to see them coming. You've got obviously all these teams who have, failed to make the playoffs, who are already looking towards the draft and free agency. They're already planning for next season. The Eagles, they're off to Disneyland, and they're just a little bit behind the curve in that. And you've obviously got the added physical baggage of playing 4 rounds of playoff football. So that it's always trickier to come back and win second time round. The other thing is look at the schedule that they've got, and I guess I'm not thinking so much about the division because you do have the resurgent Commanders. Are they going to kick on from what they've accomplished this year, or is there a risk that Jaden Daniels is a sophomore slump? that remains to be seen. But if you look elsewhere in the schedule, they've got that first place schedule, which, as we now know, with the 17 game season, includes AFC opposition. So in 2025, the Eagles will have to go to Arrowhead. They'll have to go to Highmark to play the Buffalo Bills. They're going to be playing Detroit, which is the NFC Championship game that we never got to see this season. So there's going to be some big games on their schedule, and I think, making a way too early prediction, it's not out of the question to see the Eagles not just make the playoffs but winning the division again. But are they going to take a few lumps along the way? Is that path going to be that much more difficult? Are they going to have to go on the road next season? And that's before you think about the realities of injuries and bad luck that comes their way. So it's definitely going to be trickier for them next season. But I mean, if you look at that performance last night, what a platform to take it on from.
Yeah. Just to add to your list, Gav, that list was scary enough as it was. They've got to go to Lambeau as well. They've got to go to Minnesota as well. And that's before you get, as you mentioned, before you get to the divisional games. You know what I mean? So that is a tough run to go to the Bills, to go to the Packers, go to the Chiefs, to go to the Vikings, home to the Lions. But yeah, that's going to be interesting how that one plays out for them. But we know there's not. When was the last time we had back-to-back NFC East champions? Must be touching on nearly 20 years now, isn't it? 17, 18 years or something like that. So they'll not win the NFC East next season, as we all know. I'm not saying neither of us are going to win it, but it's not going to be the Eagles. Right, let's wrap up talking about that's us wrap. We'll finish. The game's done. Super Bowl's done. The season is finished. Let's rewind slightly because we skipped this because I wanted to keep talking about the teams. The halftime show. What a show that was. I mean, I said on the previous show, I don't really know much about the guy. I know of him, know the controversy of the diss tracks and that, but that was a stunning performance all around. I mean, I'm going to give myself a pat in the back for noticing that it was set like a PlayStation controller. I'm going to take that one. I'll take my win from that because, and I have read a bit of the stuff today about the imagery and the symbolism it was about because he represents how his game is like a video game, is why they set that up like that, which is pretty cool. So that's the bit of imagery that I took instantly from it. Sarah, I know you've done a bit of reading today about all the rest of the imagery and all that sort of stuff, but first, before we get to that, what a performance first.
Absolutely stellar. It was so good. Like, I've seen a lot of people, I think a lot of people have gotten used to the pop and like the high energy and like in that sense, like performing high energy pop is different from performing high energy hip hop and R&B and rap. Like that man was throwing was so quick, and there was not a single bit that was like, oh we've messed it up, and that's hard. Like, and he did it.
Yeah. So in terms of the symbolism, the imagery, then what was in there? Because there was loads, and I've read up on it today as well. There was loads.
I mean, how long are you going to give me? Like, no, like I could sit. Well, I mean, I've got a whole paragraph on a certain part. So, and I think that's the key driving point of the whole thing. So I will go for it. Right. So obviously his opening line essentially is the revolution will be televised. You got the right time, but the wrong guy. There is no, if you do not know what he's referring to there, I can't help you. I'm sorry. Obviously, you mentioned about the video game being like as the PlayStation controller was the setup stage, and essentially, obviously, he views his life as a video game, but it's also alluding to the fact that, you know, the being controlled by the government, being put in that spot, being in a augmented reality sort of institute. The big thing was obviously it started and it was like, welcome to the Apple Music halftime show, blah, 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 blah. And there's Samuel L. Jackson as Uncle Sam. Now, again, a traditionally white figure, he represents the ideas of the government as opposed to other aspects of the nation, such as liberty and freedom. And to have that persona played by a black man is incredible, because and especially in the current political climate, is nuts. And obviously, Jackson's used to kind of steer Lamar's performance. So he's trying to suggest, you know, that the Super Bowl performance, he needs to match what's been seen in the past. Like, he's too loud, he's too reckless, he's too ghetto. And then rather than follow the narrative, Lamar chooses to pick the tracks that show off his reputation. And then there's the chase out when all the guys are sitting around the lamppost, obviously alluding to what it's like, obviously back before Kendrick was famous, and he's sitting on the streets in LA. And then obviously the positive reinforcement after, like, all the stars and with SZA, because those are the more poppy, like, radio friendly performances and music he has done. And like that kind of music is better when it's more subdued. And then obviously he goes straight into Not Like Us, and it was the whole will he do it, will he won't do it, like that whole back and forth was genius. And even going back when he went into Humble, so after he'd get told no, it's too ghetto, he can't do this, and he goes into Humble, and there's the disconnected American flag. They are on two sides, they are split by this one person in the middle, and it's an all black male dance troupe. Some of them are dressed in headscarves, some of them are in full masks. It was so good. And I know we've talked about how the Chiefs must be an absolute in a hiding point, but I don't know how Drake can go out in public again for the foreseeable time. Like, calling out his lawsuit, and literally the moment he turned around and said, "Say Drake," I couldn't. I was gone. And then also the other, because obviously we didn't know who the other guest was. We knew it was SZA, we didn't know anybody else. So obviously we got 5, because technically he obviously brought in Mustard, who's his producer. I had a moment to be like, who's this again? And I was like, oh, I now know who we are. But Serena Williams coming out was great, because obviously when she did the crib walk at Wimbledon a couple of years ago and got absolutely torn apart for it, all the media was like, oh, what, all this stuff. And then also, it is a call out to Drake, because the two were rumoured to have dated.
Yeah.
And after that, all kind of fell apart. He didn't really hold himself in the best regard. There was a lot of not really great stuff that he was doing. And to have her literally crib walk on his grave was a stellar. And then obviously, you mentioned earlier, but ending the set with TV off, to be like, turn it off, like, we don't have to listen to it anymore. Yeah. There's loads of people are breaking it down in much more better context than I will ever do, but it was great. And the people that get it, and the people that don't. And I think it'll be one that a lot of people will think of, especially with what's going on in the US outside of football.
Yeah.
It was one that will be remembered, I think, for a while, and he absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, reading a lot of stuff. There is one particular demographic of America that did not like that performance, and you only don't have to look very far on social media to see where that demographic is and what the makeup of that demographic is. I mean, I love you mentioned there about Not Like Us. I love the wee tease that he done with the 4 female dancers.
Oh, it was just so good.
I mean, you're thinking, yeah. I mean, it's like,
you knew he was going to do it. There was not a chance. You tell me you win Record of the Year and Song of the Year at the Grammys, and you don't perform it the same year, like the same time you're doing the Super Bowl halftime show. Like, not a chance. But it was that playful little, and that's what he's known for. He's known for those little jabs. So he was like, okay, we'll come back. I'll think about it. Like, it was just, it was so good.
Gav, I don't think the question about was whether he wanted to perform it. I think the big question was, were the NFL going to let him perform it? I think that was the big question, wasn't it?
I mean, I think quite possible. I mean, it's a game that perhaps not as many people are going to be talking about for across the years as we would hope for. But I think certainly the halftime show that has caught everyone's eye. I mean, I guess I don't want to talk too much about it, in the sense that I really can't do further justice to say it, run down there. But I think one of the things that probably stood out for me is just actually in terms of how it was delivered, because I think with a lot of the Super Bowl halftime over the years, they've been innovative, and sometimes I guess that's impressive in its own right. We've seen like neon and flashing lights and mechanical tigers, Katy Perry. But I think a lot of this was there's bright colour, there was sets. It was almost old school theatre it was doing. So I think that was one thing that just stood out for me as being different. I mean, if you talk about the music itself, it's probably not what's in my AirPods, but I think you've got to respect that. As I said last week, it's not for me. That, or at least in the sense that it's not been targeted at me. I think they did a great job putting the show together.
Yeah, I mean that setup with just the big long street, and that was just genius. It was so simple,
So simple. Yeah,
so effective.
and we're
Like you
alluding.
said, it was like him being back in LA and sitting in the street corner singing with these people, but it was if the whole thing was basically as if he was walking through the street and obviously going to different bits of staging, but so simple, but visually
Just so
perfect.
clever. Like, it just proves you do not have to have all the big colour blue and the big song and dance and all that stuff to make something that's that like poignant and is that much of a snapshot in the time that they're currently in. It was like, and I've really enjoyed watching people's reactions to it. So obviously people have been in bars in LA and they've been watching it because obviously people have shown up obviously to watch him. And it's just been really nice to see people's reactions to it and people who get it, people who understand what it's all about. And yeah, it's one that I think it's one that will be remembered.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I don't think, as Gav mentioned, none of that symbolism was necessarily aimed at us in terms of our demographic. But for him to have that stage and that to be able to deliver that message and actually go out and deliver it. So a lot of people can have this stage but don't go out. And he was like, nope, I'm going all out.
I'm doing it.
I'm delivering this
Yep.
message. And fair play him, he did. And there's been a lot of people in America that will completely resonate with that much more than we will. And fair play him, is what I'll say. I mean, getting out there and having the biggest stage of them all and delivering that message and giving people the kind of the hope that someone is fighting their corner out there was bang on, is what I'll say. He nailed it. He absolutely nailed the performance and the messaging that he was delivering as well. So let's see who lives up to that one next year. The bar has been.
It could be Taylor
again.
If Travis Kelce's retired, it can be Taylor Swift. No, just kidding. I don't think she'll.
There because they'll just all boo her.
I don't know. I think
It's not
maybe
right.
Depends who they're with.
Yeah.
But I don't think she'll do it for 3 more years.
Yeah, she'll do it at some point. She'll definitely do it some point.
After the next 2 years.
After she wins all her music again.
Well, no, because of something else, but it's fine. She won't do it with somebody sitting there.
Right, okay. Right, so we'll wrap up this again. We've went quite a long time, but I've enjoyed the chat tonight. So we'll wrap up the chat in terms of that's the end of the NFL season, which normally for American football podcasts would be we'll park it and we'll see you next season type thing. Well, not for us. So we've enjoyed bringing you weekly shows. It was something we decided to do at the start of January. Bit of a trial and error thing. Let's do some weekly shows. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take stock, we're going to go away and we're going to think about weekly shows and how that looks going forward, deciding how that's going to work and what you want to see here from us. So it's been 3 months for us. I still can't believe we only launched 3 months ago. It still blows my mind. But in conversation with our series of podcasts and chats with people across the world of American football, that's going to continue throughout the whole off-season. We've got some special guests lined up already for the months ahead. We're going to continue to support the grassroots game in the UK and across the world through our social media. We'll be attending game days and tournaments throughout the off-season, and that's something that we feel very passionate about and something we'll be doing going forward. The three of us want to thank you all for your support so far since we've launched. Like I said, just because the NFL season's shutting down doesn't mean we will be just ramping up. This is us just getting warmed up. That was our warm-up. It was a pre-game warm-up the last 3 months. This is when the real kickoff starts.
It was our pre-season.
That was pre-season. That was pre-season for us. It was as a let's see how this goes type thing, and it has been phenomenally received by all you people that are watching, listening, supporting us on social media and downloading the podcast. So we appreciate all of that. Our next In Conversation will drop on the 17th, so a week tonight. We have a very special guest from down under. It's one that me and Gav, we've been talking to this person for numerous months, and then when we moved into the Tartan Touchdown, we've continued that conversation, and we're now going to finally get a chance to sit down and have a conversation with them. We're recording this week. We'll drop that on Monday, so keep an eye on the social media for all the content that's going to be dropping between now and then. Until next week, see you soon.